You know that feeling when you're stuck in a tough conversation and you just keep going in circles? Well, what if I told you that a single, simple framework could totally change the game? That it could unlock a way deeper conversation, whether you're at home with your partner or stuck in a chaotic committee meeting. Today, we're going to dive into a story that shows exactly how that can happen.
All right, let's just jump right in. Imagine you walk into your house after a long day, and that's the first thing your spouse says to you. This pretty startling conclusion from a woman named Anna is exactly where our story kicks off, and it's the key to understanding two totally different but deeply connected conversations.
So this first deep dive conversation, it starts right at home. And it all begins with, of all things, a whiteboard in the living room. A whiteboard that was about to reveal a huge, frustrating mismatch between a husband and wife that had been hiding in plain sight for years. So our narrator gets home, and his wife, Anna, has drawn out their personalities using this new model she just learned called Working Geniuses. And as she's staring at the visual evidence right there on the board, she delivers that blunt assessment of their whole situation. Okay, so before we can really get why she thought they were screwed, we need to understand the framework she was using, because this is where the magic really starts to happen. So what exactly is this model? What is this thing that had Anna both totally energized and at the same time pretty concerned? Well, it's all about looking at the work we do every day and figuring out how it actually makes us feel. You know, the model is actually beautifully simple. It says that all the tasks we do fall into one of three buckets. First, you've got your working genius. This is the stuff you're amazing at. You love doing it, and it literally gives you energy. Then there's working competency. Yeah, you're good at it, but it doesn't really light you up. And finally, you have your working frustration, the things you're not good at, and they just suck the life right out of you. And this is where the penny drops. When Anna and the narrator put their own profiles up on that whiteboard, a huge problem just jumped right out at them. I mean, look, their geniuses were a great match. She's all about wonder and enablement. He's great with invention and discernment. But look down at that bottom row. That was the problem. They had the exact same working frustration. And this one shared frustration, this big gap in their combined skill set, well, it turned out to be the secret reason for years and years of stress and chaos around the house. So the problem was tenacity. Tenacity is that genius of pushing things through to the end, of wrestling with all the little details, of just getting it done. And for both of them, it wasn't just something they weren't good at, it was something that crushed their souls. Neither one of them had any natural energy for it. And this right here, this shows you the real-world fallout. This wasn't some abstract idea. Suddenly, everything made sense. The late fees on bills? That was tenacity. Kids always running late for school? Tenacity. The budget that was more of a suggestion than a rule? Yep. And oh yeah, the famous Thanksgiving where the dishes sat in the sink for 2 solid days, that was a massive lack of tenacity. I mean, Anna's quote just says it all. She could use her enablement genius and happily throw a giant party for 20 people, because that's all about helping and serving. But the daily grind of cooking, and especially the tenacity it takes to clean up afterward, in her own words, it was a nightmare. So here's the big takeaway from their first deep dive conversation. The solution wasn't, okay, let's just try harder at this thing we both hate. No. Step 1 was to totally reframe the problem. They weren't terrible, lazy people. They were just stuck working in their frustration. And step 2 was to get real. How could they find a way to delegate or outsource this tenacity stuff that was draining them both? But right in the middle of this amazing breakthrough, this awesome, deep, insightful conversation, life happens. The narrator suddenly remembers he's late for a meeting that, of course, his wife, using her genius of enablement, had cheerfully volunteered him for. So he rushes out the door, leaving the whiteboard and this huge aha moment behind, and walks straight into a completely different world, a parish committee meeting that's already tense, stuck, and totally unproductive. The second deep dive conversation is about to begin, whether he knows it or not. The topic of the meeting is the annual International Festival, an event that's been going downhill for years. The leader, a guy named Finn, lays out the pretty bleak numbers. Fewer people, losing money, and then he wraps it up by saying he's really hoping they can turn it around this year. For our narrator, who's fresh off this conversation about practical frameworks, that word hoping is like a giant red flag. His brain immediately screams, hope is not a strategy. That's his discernment genius kicking in. But what does he do? He says nothing.
He's learned that in this group, pointing out the obvious flaws is not always welcome. It's seen as being negative. So he just bites his tongue. So the meeting is just about to chug along, assigning tasks for a plan that he knows is doomed. It feels completely hopeless. But then, just as Finn is about to hand out assignments, one quiet question changes absolutely everything. A woman in the back of the room, who's holding a sleeping toddler, asks this incredibly simple but really powerful question. She's not asking what they should do. She's asking why they're even doing it. She's inviting them all into a much deeper conversation. And the reaction is immediate, and it is ice cold. Finn, the leader, just looks confused. Another woman basically scoffs, saying it's a waste of time to even question a 25-year tradition. You could feel the tension in the air. The woman who asked the question is now officially the difficult one. And in that exact moment, it all clicks for the narrator. He connects the deep conversation he just had with his wife to the one happening right now. He realizes, wait a minute, she isn't being difficult. She's operating in her genius. She is the genius of wonder, just like my wife Anna. And he knows he's got to say something. So all he does is speak up and say that he thinks it's a fair and important question. And by simply validating her, by giving her permission to wonder, he flips a switch and transforms the entire dynamic of that meeting. And what happens next is just incredible. Instead of a fight, there's this wave of relief. And the first person to speak up is the pastor himself, Father John. He admits that he's felt stuck for years, that he feels like he's not allowed to end programs even when they're not working anymore. And just like that, the dam breaks. Finn, the leader who seemed so annoyed a minute ago, admits he felt the same way, that the festival was a sacred cow that nobody could touch. And suddenly, everyone is laughing and being honest. The meeting goes from this tense, awful march toward failure into this amazing, open, and truly deep conversation about what they're actually trying to accomplish together. And that's really the power here, isn't it? In both stories, a frustrating, surface-level conversation became a deep and productive one. At home, it was unlocked by identifying a shared frustration. In the meeting, it was unlocked by a single brave why question. It really makes you wonder, what conversations in your own life, at work or at home, are just waiting for the right question to be asked? And maybe more importantly, do you have the courage to be the one to ask?